no amount. Okay, no amount of social programs can avoid disaster. They waited too long. There's simply not enough fertile people to bring fertility rates up by that much. Come here. Sorry, my son is interrupting. Let me see. Yeah, so fertility rates changes. You can look at these average ages. I just put these arrows on this chart. So this is obviously fertility, like actual biological fertility, not fertility rate by how many kids you have, but like a biological fertility. Monthly probability of a pregnancy ending in birth. Okay, and age down here. So it really drops in the 20s, and then in the 30s it continues to drop. In 40s it peters out, but it's so low already. Now Japan's average age is 49. Italy, 48. South Korea, 46. Germany, 45. Poland, 42. China is 40, and they're getting older faster than any of these countries. The U.S. is at 39, but it's getting to the point where, there's just not enough people to turn it around. And you're going to have a lost period, okay? I'm not saying this is the end of civilization. It could be. But there's going to be a 40, 50-year gap in growth and all of that stuff because of demographics, because demographics are so bad. And Bitcoin can't save us from this. It won't necessarily collapse, but it will, just like it has been since 2008. Low growth, low inflation, the silent depression. Just think, going back to the Middle Ages, and they had obviously the plague years, but they also had the late medieval depression, right? Let me Google that real fast. Let's just read what this says here. So the late medieval depression refers to a period of roughly 1300 to 1500 of widespread crisis in Europe, marked by immense hardship from the Black Death, famine, the Great Famine here, war, 100 Years' War, and social disruption, leading to demographic collapse, economic downturns, and profound psychological impacts, often described through concepts like melancholy. Okay, melancholia. This era saw a great depression in trade, production, and populations, with intense suffering fueling religious fervor, social unrest, and new understandings of mental distress beyond just sin. So a lot of people have said that this coming demographic crisis, we haven't seen anything like the Black Death. And I would agree in a absolute figure, like absolute number figure. But the Black Death it didn't discriminate against ages. And so we still had to have a lot of babies. There was just a much higher death rate. Okay. And now the demographic crisis is also older, just like this image. Okay. The average age is this old. That's a crisis in and of itself. During the Black Death, the average age was right around this hump, probably. The most fertile time was when that was the average age of the population. Now we have crashing demographics with the average age out here. So there's no way to replace people. Okay, so let me just keep reading. The Black Death and subsequent plagues drastically reduced Europe's population, causing massive labor shortages and societal upheaval. Yes, but everything went down in order, right? It's not like only certain professions died or a whole generation was killed off, right? You had this, it was proportional throughout the economy, maybe not proportional country to country, but what I'm trying to say is there's going to be a shift in the quality of economic activity today. So if you think about, we've talked about production, and usually production is a young man's game, right? In your 20s, 30s, 40s, you have high production and high consumption. And then when you get into your later years, you have lower production and lower consumption. And of course, in your very young years, you have no production and relatively low consumption. Okay. A 5-year-old is going to consume less than a 25-year-old. And so, but we have a qualitative shift along that continuum. Black Death did not have that. The Black Death did not have a qualitative shift to an older population. It probably actually caused a slight downward shift in average age. Because, the 1-year-olds can be replaced within a year or 2 years, whatever. But 50-year-olds can't be replaced. And so as the death happens in the Black Death, the average age is going to move lower. Today we have it where the average age is moving higher. Okay, I've beaten this dead horse, but economic shocks, bad harvests, famines, prolonged warfare, the 100 Years' War, devastating agriculture, trade, and tax revenues, creating severe economic depression. Yep, and the main export of this time from Europe wasn't no longer textiles or wool or whatever. It became silver. And so you saw silver flooding out of Europe, mainly east to the Muslim world, and then further into, you know, China along the trade routes and stuff. So you had a bunch of silver leaving. And so you had bad demographics, you had silver leaving, and the economies did not recover. The populations did not recover in the economies until they found silver again, by the way, in the German mountains. That was the big revival of European economy, was when they could fix the money. So social and political instability. Yeah. So the same sort of things. And we've seen a revival in religion, especially the United States. It's gone up drastically. It's probably not doubled, but it's probably risen 50% just in the last couple of years since COVID. And I think that will continue. Okay. There's going to be a revival of religion in these places. Yeah. And revolution, we're seeing that with going back to conservatism and all that stuff. So there's some very big parallels here between the late medieval depression and now. So what am I trying to say that? So I'm not saying we're going to crash, but I'm saying that we're going to be in a prolonged period of this type of depression, low growth, low inflation. And with that, you will see famines. I mean, just think if the global supply chains broke down for fertilizer, half of Africa would starve. There's going to be massive problems like this in the next 50 to 100 years. So this period could be known as the late modern depression or something like this. Okay, enough of that. Let's go back